Hi, I'm Nicole Fegley, and welcome to Conscious 2. Our guest today is Trudy Goodman, and Trudy's a beloved mindfulness teacher who's based here in Los Angeles, which is where we're filming today. And she started a vibrant community here called Insight LA. How long ago was that, Trudy?
It will be 15 years this fall.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So we're shooting in one of their locations today, actually. And what we're going to be doing over the next couple of hours is Trudy's going to be leading us in a workshop, an introduction to mindfulness for your whole life. So she's going to give us some basic principles on mindfulness. We're going to go through some guided meditations. She's going to give us some practices. It's going to be interactive, so there's a studio audience here with us today. So it should be a beautiful couple of hours. And really, we're laying the foundation today for a course that we're going to be offering with Trudy. It'll be a 6-month course by the same name, Mindfulness for Your Whole Life. That'll be coming out in a few weeks. A taste of that and a taste of Trudy's teaching. So I want to thank you all so much for tuning in today, and all of you in our audience, thank you for bringing your presence. And without further ado, I want to turn it on over to so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. I'm really happy to be here. So I wanted to say a few words about Inside LA. I moved to Los Angeles, about 15 and a half years ago, and started Inside LA. And at that time, mindfulness was not everywhere. It had not really spread as far as it has in the last 15 years and where we are today. And we were the first center, actually, in the world to start from the basis of both teaching mindfulness as a mainstream secular practice. I'm proud of that because as it's our very for which I started 43 years ago, both my own craziness of my own mind and also a sense that I had come home to a place where I was going to be able to be and embrace and know myself in a way that was far bigger and more just healthier, more satisfying, more fulfilling, wiser than the craziness that I felt at that time and at that age. So I was so grateful, and it helped me so much that all through my professional life as a psychotherapist, I feel like this was my theoretical home was really in the presence and awareness that comes from being mindful. Mindfulness, as you know, is all about being present with our life as it's unfolding, moment to moment, really beginning to see the processes of how things happen and being able to see that with a measure of equanimity, with some spaciousness in our hearts around what's happening, so that instead of constantly being caught in judgment or criticism or trying to evaluate what's going on, we can relax some and just be with it. And you can feel, even when I just say, we can relax and just be with it, I could feel we all kind of soften and relax. So we'll be doing practices that help us do that today. And I just want to say a few words about why I feel mindfulness has spread throughout our society the way that it has and the way that it's happening now. People sometimes say to me, oh, it's just a fad, but I don't think it is. And the reason that it isn't is because what is mindfulness really? What does it mean to be a witness to our own lives? What does it mean to get to know ourselves beneath the layers of stress or craziness or whatever else is going on in our lives? It really means connecting with our own humanity in a more deep and loving way. And that's not a fad. Anything that helps us do that is going to last and be part of our lives and our culture, and hopefully more and more, and for many years to come. And we often think of mindfulness as aware of our own minds and consciousness and our own selves, and it is, but there's mindfulness both internally, like that, and there's external mindfulness, which has to do with what we see and who we interact with and our relationships with each other and with all the elements of our lives. And the external mindfulness of each other, but also of what's happening in the world around us, is not separate from the internal mindfulness. The more we practice, the more we realize we're not separate from our surroundings. We're very connected. And when we're able to step back and just look very clearly, see, hear, taste, touch, smell, open our senses to exactly what's happening in this moment, when we stop and when we do that, we have moments of realizing the inside and outside are one thing. They're very connected. When I look at you, you fill my consciousness. I'm not thinking about anything else right now. And the same when I look at you. You know, in that sense, we begin to feel the seamlessness of our world. And we also start to see something else, which is how much the way we look at our world, the frame or the lens through which we're looking at our world, determines what we see. And this is another reason why mindfulness is so important to us, to be able to be aware of the liking, the disliking, the moving toward things that I crave more of, the moving away from things I don't want to be there, the spacing out around things that kind of are neutral to me. They don't really help me or hinder me, so I'm not even going to notice them, right? If they're not about me in some way. You know, we start to see these habits and how they color our perceptions. And I mean, you can see it in the simplest way. You get up, what do we say, on the wrong side of the bed, or it's a bad hair day, or and that day it just seems like everything goes wrong. You know, that's the day you drop your coffee and you have to change your clothes and you're already late, and yeah. And so we begin to see that, and then you might say, well, how does it help to see that? Well, we know from neuroscience now, from all these images of our brains and which parts of our brains light up when we think and do what, we actually can tell now and begin to track the way that being aware and even making a light mental note, just saying to yourself, oh, stressed, oh, rushed, oh, impatient, oh, frustrated, whatever's going on, beautiful day, spring, joy, whatever it might be, that just being able to notice and track, it calms our amygdala, it calms the part of our brain that is in charge of alerting and scaring us, actually, which is something we need sometimes, but not as much of the time as we often experience. And this is another reason, I think, why mindfulness is spreading so far and wide. Science is the dominant discourse of our time, and we're really trained to look at data and see what works that way. And the studies that, I would say, it's maybe even 15 years ago when I came here, the studies about the efficacy of mindfulness, real, strong, well-executed studies and research, they maybe took up a page or two of the Mindfulness Monthly newsletter that comes out of USC, University of Southern California. Now that newsletter is pages and pages and pages of studies. And so it's becoming a very well-researched intervention. And we're seeing there are actually changes that occur in the structure of the brain when people practice mindfulness on a regular basis. And that doesn't mean 2 hours a day for 30 years. People who practice for 8 weeks in a sustained way, they can begin to see the effects in the brain. We know that our brain is plastic and malleable and changes its structure according to our experience. We didn't know this 15 years ago in the same way. It's amazing. And it's such good news. I used to feel so guilty. Oh my gosh, these are the years that are years are change and perceive access. Okay. Friends, really keep the secrets to our dear friend because we know they will hold them with respect and kindness toward us. At least we hope so. It's a good friend. We want to be that kind of good and reliable friend to ourselves. And, it's not, my mom used to say, but honey, isn't that navel gazing? Isn't that too self-centered? But it isn't, because how we treat others depends a lot on how we feel about ourselves and how we treat ourselves. So by learning to be kinder and more accepting of who we are through these practices, which we're going to do together today, and also to continue to elaborate and learn lots of different ones in the course as we go forward, these practices, they give us that courage. They show us how to be a better friend to ourselves. And then we are inevitably nicer to everybody else. It's just, we don't even have to try, it just follows very naturally. I will say there is one drawback to mindfulness. There is one problem with it, and that is that you have to do it in order for it to work. It's not enough to keep a pile of books by your bed and read it before you read them, books about mindfulness and read them before you fall asleep. And it's not enough to just listen to podcasts about mindfulness. I mean, it's a good thing to listen while you're driving around or whatever, but to really practice, to see what it's like when you do it yourself, and then to keep trying and keep exploring, at least for a while. What is the expression? It works if you work it. It really does. It does take some effort and some work to do. Mindfulness. To know about you guys. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead us together in a practice and then ask you to be aware of just whatever questions this is raising for you, either what I've said or what comes up as we do a practice together. So I do need my bell, and I think, Gulu, it might be over. Oh no, here it is. Great. Can you reach? Yeah. Thank you.
Tether to the chair. There we go.
Thank you. I think beginning and ending with the sound of a bell, it just soothes our whole nervous system. And this bell was brought to me by my friend Armin. His meditation teacher, his Zen master in Japan, picked it out carefully. So I'm going to be very careful as I hold it, very mindful. So I want to invite you, when you hear the sound of the bell, to listen to it all the way to its vanishing point. When I teach kids, they really like to do that, to see how long they can hear that sound until it disappears. There's something about going from sound into stillness, whether it's the sounds of life around us, or that when a sound ends, we can just have a real taste of that stillness or quiet, if only for a few seconds. So I'm going to ring the bell and listen all the way. So sitting in whatever posture is comfortable for you and lowering your eyes. You can close them if you like, but it's not necessary. I like to keep my eyes open just a little bit to stay oriented to my surroundings, as well as stepping back to look within. So straightening your back, but just gently, feeling your feet against the floor. Feeling the touch points of your body with the chair. If you're practicing at home on a cushion, just feeling the touch points of wherever you're sitting. And if you're lying down, which is also fine, just feeling the pressure points of your body with the floor, the bed, the couch, wherever you're lying down. And gently let your attention drop, just like a snowflake or a falling leaf, from the head into the body. Take a couple of deep breaths, breathing in aliveness, energy. And as you breathe out, releasing everything that came before this moment and everything that may follow. And see, can you notice the sensations in the body as you breathe? The rise and fall of the belly, the diaphragm. See if you can feel the expansion and contraction of the rib cage and the lungs in the front and back of the body. And you might notice the coolness of the inhalation as you breathe in. And the slight warmth of the out-breath, of the exhalation. We sit up straight in the midst of experience. We're not trying to go away anywhere, but just to be fully here in this moment of life, just as it is. Feeling the breath fill the whole body. As if the whole body is breathing in and out. The breath is your connection to this present moment. And any sounds of life around us, too. We only hear the sounds of this moment. And we only feel the sensations of the breath we're breathing right now. So rest your attention gently with the movement of the breath. And when you notice, have you noticed that your mind has wandered away? Your attention has gone into the past or the future. That noticing itself is a moment of mindfulness. So instead of feeling like a bad meditator because your mind is wandering, you can rejoice. You're aware, awake, right here, right now. And in mindfulness meditation, we let the breath move in its own natural rhythm. And again, can you notice how it is? Long or short? Smooth or choppy? Obvious or subtle? Noticing how it is for you. And allowing the breath to breathe you as we sit quietly together. And in this practice, you can look at your thoughts instead of from within them. You can step back from this stream of consciousness, our mind stream. Literally move your body back just a half an inch. As though you're sitting on the banks of the stream, just watching the thoughts and feelings appear and disappear. Flowing by. And sometimes it's helpful if there's a thought that is persistent or bothering you particularly. Sometimes it's helpful to just put a little note or label on that thought, planning, remembering, daydreaming, dreaming. And if you notice any area of tension or discomfort as we sit together, see if you can turn gently toward that sensation. With kind attention. What happens if you turn gently toward that which is uncomfortable instead of pulling away? Remembering that we're observing with the intention to understand rather than to judge. Being with ourselves with alert, kind attentiveness. Curious to see what will emerge. keeping the mind, the body, the heart, keeping ourselves company with mindfulness, with attention that is suffused with friendliness. Breath by breath, moment by moment. Allowing the body to relax even further. Softening the shoulders. Sitting tall in the midst of experience as it comes and goes. Just as it is, with a great openness of heart and mind. And when you're ready, opening your eyes if they've been closed. So I'd like to ask you, what I had said before, if this raises any questions for you, anything you'd like to ask about.
Yes, I was noticing during the meditation, um, some sounds were really distracting me. Like I want complete silence in meditation, and like I would hear like a door opening, or I hear a fire truck, or whatever it is, and I notice I go into frustration. I become aware of it, but it's really hard for me to reset and come back into the practice. So I would love some tips around that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I was really struck when you said, I want it completely silent when I meditate. And I thought, okay, there's a recipe for frustration and disappointment right there. We want our minds to drop into complete silence and stillness. We want our surrounds to cooperate. The environment should support us fully and completely, and that means complete silence. And I don't know where you'd find that. So right away, the fact that we're here in LA in an urban environment, we hear sounds of traffic pretty much all the time, wherever we are. So your question is a great one. How do we reset when we've been hijacked by a sound that we didn't want to hear, that intruded on our peaceful moment? And then when hijacked, how to come back and reset? So that's a great question. And so the first thing is that you are very mindful. You notice when your mind is carried away. You notice the frustration that arose in you. And along with the noticing of the frustration, it can be important to notice, too, how much you just want it all to go away. And because usually we notice what we don't like, and we're very mindful, as you were, and then there's another sort of next step of embracing reality, which includes noticing how much we don't like being frustrated, or we don't like not liking what's happening. And then we often judge ourselves as meditators or as people. Or so there are these layers, and all of us stop somewhere. So learning where your edge is of where your mindfulness stops and how to open it to that next step is really how to reset. So the reset doesn't come in the way that you might have loved, which is creating silence. But the reset comes in seeing how much it bothers you and how much you don't like it, and then bringing some kind awareness to that. Almost as if you're saying, oh, they're there. That doesn't feel good. And whatever we bring that positivity to is easier to let go of. It's counterintuitive, actually. We think it'd be easier to let go of the things we hate and don't like, but it doesn't work that way. Not liking things is actually makes them very sticky. What is the saying? When that which we resist persists. So letting yourself have the feelings you're having and noticing them, but infusing your noticing with that kindness or the friendliness, like how you would treat yourself if you were a little kid and were unhappy about something. Hopefully you would, pat yourself on the back. You'd be kind about it instead of just saying, snap out of it. Often the way we talk to ourselves. So thank you. Yeah. Anybody else have a question? Pilar.
Well, when I started to meditate, I just came because I had a lot of stress, and then I have a lot of tension and a lot of pain. So they told me that I have fibromyalgia, so I was in pain basically all the time. My, you know, the stress. It was just like. Okay, I don't know what to say now.
So what did you do, Pilar, when you came and you felt you became more aware of the...
Well, that was the thing. The thing is like being aware of the pain, and instead of pushing it away, I was just trying to concentrate in the pain and how it usually was in my neck and my shoulder area. So when I'm in pain and I'm meditating, and just focus completely there, and I can see, it's like going under the skin, and you can just even feel the blood coming in and out, and the and how it spreads all around your body. Then sometimes you feel even more pain when you are doing that. So I try to go to another part of my body where it's not feeling anything, no pain or nothing. And I try to focus there and the sensations that part is giving me. And then I come back again and I kind of play with that. But I have to say, this thing of the awareness, it was what really changed that.
Yes.
because the fact that I was aware that I was all the time with my,
Yes, that you were holding your
my
shoulders.
shoulders like that, it was a big thing for me. Suddenly I will just catch myself all the time like that, and I was able to say, "Shh, relax." When you start to do that over and over, actually you start to get like a normal position in your neck and your shoulders, and you really start to relax. So that was one of my experiences. And another experience with pain is like giving the opportunity of, it's like the what if something changed. Before, when I get up and I was in pain, I was just in such a bad mood, and I will tell everybody in my house, I'm in a lot of pain, so be careful with me. And I remember taking this class with Christiana, and she was saying, why you think your pain is going to be the same at 2 in the afternoon, at 3, or at 5? When I get up with pain, I know how my day was going to be. It was going to be just like a disaster, in a bad mood all day, screaming, my kids, poor them. So it was bad. When I started to meditate, I started to give like an option, like kind of like a think out of the box. It's like, what if actually the pain change in half an hour and it's not that bad? And just because I gave that opportunity, to bring a new different thought, actually also started to change. Not always was bad. Sometimes around, mid of the day, my pain was better. So I was able to change things. So that's my experience with the pain and,
Thank
and
you.
meditation.
Thank you, Pilar.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to share either a question or some way that this practice, that you've noticed a change? Because everybody who's interested in mindfulness and who may be with us today really wants to know, how does this work and how does it help? Just Pilar explained how it helps with pain. We all carry so much stress in our necks and shoulders and backs, and it was intense for you. And mindfulness, the awareness helped you. So if there's anybody else who would like to let us know how it is for you in your mindfulness practice, because you've all done some.
So I would say that I am a bit of a novice when it comes to mindfulness. Yet at the same time, I've also had a really lucky experience of having a family that is mindful about mindfulness. And so I've kind of grown up with really wanting to tune into how, we're really feeling and what's really coming up for us in the moment. And I can think of just my current present is that I'm in a fun, though stressful, transitional time of, youth, working on my career. I just came out to LA a couple months ago, all the way from Boston, actually. So it's been very transitional, and there's a lot of new, and all depending on my attitude, it can be really scary or it can be really exciting. And so there's certainly moments of doubt that can come up, and stress, but a lot of it is just noticing when I'm getting caught up in headspace, as opposed to noticing my present and noticing that I'm doing really well right now and everything's okay. And looking at, the reality of what is. And so for that, I find mindfulness very helpful in grounding myself.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to share something?
So I've been meditating a long time. I started in my mid-20s, and at that time I was very goal-oriented. My whole life, when I look back, even at the age of 25, was all about achievement and constant striving and moving forward and trying to get things done. And I had a lot of success at that, but I noticed when I sort of had arrived in my high-power corporate job as a lawyer, I wasn't very happy. And really what's continued to unfold over the last 25 years is I've become so much more process-oriented, so much more engaged in what I'm actually doing than worrying about where I'm trying to get or the achievements that I want. And shockingly, I still get things done, but I have a lot more fun, and there's just more natural happiness in that process.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, but I grew up in a religious home, church and youth groups and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I started practicing mindfulness and trying to explain it to my parents, I think they still struggle with it as sort of like me leaving a religion behind and joining something new. So if you have any advice on kind of how to explain to them what the difference between the two, how it can all be the same, how it's not one thing or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's something that I certainly had to work with my parents in a different way, but similar. And what you can show your parents, actually more than maybe even explain to them, is the way that being more present and being more awake to what's happening allows you to be more present with whatever's happening, including if you're in church or if people have a practice of prayer, for example. Learning to focus and pour all your love and attention into that prayer makes it more powerful in every way. Deciding to pray and then having your mind wander, right? That's so common. That happens to everybody. So maybe talking to your parents about how it helps you focus in prayer, how it helps you, not mind wander during the singing when you're in church, and how mindfulness is really a large part of how this practice relieves suffering and helps us, is that we also behave better because we're slowing down our impulsive reactions to things, so that instead of just impulsively saying this or lashing out, or we actually can slow into an experience, take a breath, and have a choice about how we will respond instead of just reacting. Because a lot of times that first reaction isn't the wisest one. So talking to your parents in a practical way. But also I remember hearing a story that resonated with me, where a young woman who had gone to a meditation retreat wrote about, going home and her parents being upset and her wanting to share the practice, and they weren't open to it at all. And then she wound up and she said, they hate it when I'm a Buddhist, but they love me when I'm a Buddha. In other words, when she could manifest being wiser, being kinder, being more careful, but in a good way, being more mindful about herself at home with her family. And believe me, if you can do this at home with your family, that's the gold standard. If somebody in your family, your kids or your partner notices a change in you, that's huge. So when she could embody her mindfulness, and they loved her and they appreciated that. When she was trying to talk them into, at that time she was doing Buddhist practice, so you're not even talking about that, but still it can be scary for parents. Parents are scared by definition, so yeah.
So more nuts and bolts, especially for more beginners. I've heard some instruction around find a focal point to start in a meditation practice, whether focus on breath, focus on breathing into the belly, or like I've done Vipassana where we're scanning the entire body. I would love to hear some thoughts around, do we do focal point? Are we focusing on a particular thing, especially in the beginning of the practice? What do you advise?
Yeah. These are great questions. Thank you, everybody, and for your openness and sharing. We need a focal point at the beginning of our practice, whether it's the first 5 minutes of a sitting practice or whether it's when we're just starting out on this journey. Usually, one of the things that you discover when you first decide to be mindful is that I make the decision to be mindful, but then 2 seconds later, I forget that I'd made the decision to be mindful. And so the focal point helps stay connected to the intention that we have to wake up and be a little more present with our lives. But it isn't something that you have to keep forever. So let's say, you've sat down, you've had a little experience, your focus is the breath, and the breath is a really good focus for many people because it has a naturally soothing quality. It sort of rocks, moves in, out. There's an ebb and flow to it. For some people, the breath, maybe they have asthma or maybe for whatever reason, it can make them nervous to focus on the breath. So for people, then maybe the sensations in the hands or the touch points with the chair. There are sounds for people who aren't so averse to them. There's lots of different focal points. So choosing that point and just using it to help kind of gather the attention in from all the places that it's been flowing out and kind of fragmenting, just to kind of gather it in to focus. And then after a few minutes, maybe it's possible to just be present with the sounds, with the sensations, from time to time with the breath, but without holding one focus point. It's really something that is so personal. And the good news is you get to experiment and play and see what happens. What happens if I sit for 20 minutes and hold that focal point as steady as I can, which means constantly slipping off of it and coming back. And then that's the training, is coming back, training the attention to be here. What happens if I don't do it at all? What's it like? What happens if I do it for a few minutes until I feel more settled? And then just open my attention to, open all my senses and just be present with the aliveness of this moment. So that gives you some choices of how to experiment. And I really like to encourage people to be playful with this practice and curious and see what works for you, because we're all wired differently. It's not one size fits all, it's really different for different ones of us. And then you get to discover what works for you, and the definition of what works for you is what helps you stay present with experience. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things for me that really helped me, the mindfulness, is with my thoughts. My thoughts was a big deal for me because I really believed them. I thought everything was in my mind, it was real, and it was right. Just because it was mine, it has to be right, isn't it? So one of the most important things for me was to be able to separate the thoughts and not to believe that everything that came to my mind, it was real.
Yes.
That was
How did you learn to do that, Pilar?
such a big thing.
Can you tell people how you learned that? Because I think that is one of the hugest benefits and and maybe trickiest things to learn how to do?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes with the practice and with the teaching. You need to have a teacher who has to go through all these,
So having a practice, having a teacher who
a
can
teacher. Yeah,
guide
I
you.
learned this with when we took the class, the 8-week class for the stress reduction. And every week we will have one subject that we will focus on. And the thoughts was one of the most important for me, because it's this thing that one, like, you are making all the time these stories in your head about everybody. I mean, your family, your kids, your mother-in-law, your whatever. And it's like, and then that affects everything, affects your day, how you're feeling, your mood, you're happy, you're unhappy, all these things. And to be able to just like, no, that's just a thought. Why? Like, it doesn't have any consistency. I mean, no consistency. It's not in a real base, like what I was thinking. I was just imagining things all the time. So just to be able to stop to do that, it completely changed everything. It was a big thing for me.
Thank you. Thank you. We call that a revolution of consciousness. It's that huge of a change to go from being in the thoughts, inside the envelope of what you're thinking and believing it all. And then we all know what that's like. Our whole experience of pleasure or happiness, it rises and falls with the thoughts that we're having and how much we're believing them. And learning to observe that instead of being in the thoughts, being able to observe, to look at them, it's a huge liberation. And then we find out that the thoughts actually know how to come and go and do their own thing. We really don't even have to be involved in thinking them. There's just a kind of, that T constant comment. There's this sort of constant comment of thinking that follows us around most of the time. And that's all it is. It's like the wake behind a boat. And we make it so personal because, of course, as you said, they were your thoughts, so you thought they were right. Yeah. Thank you.
And also to bring different thoughts in your life. I mean, to be able to know that actually you can decide that you can bring different thoughts. It doesn't have to be a negative thought. You can also bring positive thoughts. So that's a new thing also. It's like I think we are just so wired in the negative things that just to let open a window to good things that happen in life, it was just like, hey, wow, that's incredible.
And that really leads into the next practice that I would like for us to do together, which is more about bringing the positive thoughts into your life. Let's just as you said it. These are practices that years ago when I trained as a psychotherapist, we never learned. We were not taught that you could deliberately strengthen certain qualities of the heart by focusing on them. And now, of course, we have the brain images. We can see just how the attention, the areas where we bring to that which we bring attention, that's where the neurons light up. And thousands of years ago, centuries, I was going to say, but it's thousands of years ago, the teaching is to that which we bring attention, to that does our mind incline. Where we pay attention, that's where our attention winds up going. The meditators knew that forever. But now we actually have brain scans that show areas of the brain being strengthened by repeated attention. So what's so freeing, again, a great liberation from this, is that we can do certain practices that will bring more love, joy, compassion, equanimity into our hearts and into our lives. And this does change our relationships because people tend to act the way we expect them to act to some extent. So as we begin to bring more of these positive qualities into our own hearts, we start to see them more everywhere. And that helps them grow in others as well. So I would like to do a practice that can help us grow our capacity for love, but it's the love that is really friendship. And I talked about making friends with ourselves at the beginning, and this is a practice that can really help us tend and befriend ourselves. It's a loving kindness practice, and traditionally, it's done with different categories. So first we would offer to ourselves, then with the understanding that once we have generated some reservoir of goodwill in our own hearts, we have something to offer to others. And we offer first to the people to whom it comes for whom it arises naturally in our hearts, people who've helped us, who've been mentors or benefactors in some way, dear friends, people we love. And then it gets really interesting because we start calling to mind people that we actually don't care about too much, one way or the other. And it's kind of shocking to discover how many of those there are in our daily life. But we choose somebody that we call the neutral person, and we begin to offer friendly wishes and focus in a positive, loving way on this person. And lo and behold, what happens? We start to actually care about that person. And then we move to somebody who's difficult in our lives, or a difficult part of ourselves, someone that really just rubs us the wrong way, or we don't choose the worst person who's treated us the worst in the world, but we move to someone who's difficult and see, not so much can we love this person, that would be a stretch, but can we free our hearts from states of resentment or holding grudges or just general ill will? Can we free our hearts and be more open, at least? And then we extend to all beings everywhere, really, really letting the heart get that big. So today, in the interest of time, we just begin with ourselves, and then we'll extend to our world. And with this meditation, it's really important that you be comfortable. Like I'm noticing now that I would like to remove my shoes and liberate my feet. So that's a real signal to relax. It's very difficult to generate feelings of happiness, gladness, brightening the mind, friendliness, if you're not comfortable. So finding a way to sit that really helps you feel relaxed, isn't it? But you want to be like yes, that's, all right, so Terry, just before we begin, brought up an important point, which is
To be comfortable in the environment that you are in. And the minute that I said to do this, because this is my comfort zone. This is what I love to do.
me too.
Yeah. And I just felt uncomfortable because everybody had their feet down.
Right.
And I'm usually sitting down on the floor and doing this. It's not like you're meditating on the chair. You're usually, so I felt, so when you're doing that, I was, okay, I'll do this too. Because it's more comfortable.
It just gave you permission to do it.
Yes.
But it also shows us how much we look at sort of what we think we're supposed to do. We want to be approved of. We want to fit in and belong. And sometimes we actually override what's right for us in order to fit in or belong or be like everybody else. And And sometimes it's not necessary. Who knows? Like, I just crossed my legs, then you crossed yours. If you had done that, who knows?
I really, really want to
Maybe
do that.
Caitlin would have done it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this feels so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope going forward you will remember this, because one definition of mindfulness is remembering to be mindful, and give yourself that gift of being in the way that's right for you in any given setting. Yeah.
And I'm so more relaxed now.
Yeah.
Earlier it's like, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're all sitting in our good, relaxed posture, whatever that might be. And see, Caitlin did curl her legs up after you curled yours. And again, closing your eyes if that's comfortable for you. It's less distracting to lower the eyes, certainly to lower the gaze. And it's also a signal to our whole being that we're looking within. We're focusing within right now. And I like to take 1 or 2 deep breaths just to settle comfortably into the body. But with this practice, we're not worrying about sensations in the body or tracking our breath. The focus, or the anchor, or the connection to the moment is some phrases that carry this intention to grow our capacity to love. And in this practice, all you have to do is repeat a phrase which I will offer, and then listen. As you repeat that phrase silently to yourself, really listen to what you're saying and see if you can mean it. And then when your mind wanders away, as it inevitably will, you simply come back to the phrase, listening. And whether you feel loving or not actually doesn't matter. What matters is the intention. And with each phrase, we're planting that seed of intention. So I'll ring the bell and then begin with the phrases of loving kindness practice. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I be truly happy and deeply peaceful. May I live with the ease of an open heart. May I be healthy and strong. And if that's not possible, may I accept my limitations with grace. May my heart be steady through the ups and downs of life. May I have the inner and outer resources that I need. May I appreciate my life completely, just as it is. And may I love myself completely, just the way I am. And one more time. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I be truly happy and deeply peaceful. May I live with the ease of an open heart. May I be well. May my heart be steady through the ups and downs of life. May I have the inner and outer resources I need. May I appreciate my life completely, just as it is. And may I love myself completely, just the way I am. And notice which phrases resonated most for you. And then take a few minutes to just offer yourself these well wishes for safety, for peace and happiness, for well-being, for steadiness, appreciation, and love. Whatever quality you feel you want to welcome more into your life that needs strengthening. Or if you feel content, peaceful, happy in this moment, just stay with that feeling. Enjoy and appreciate being good right now. And just as we wish to be safe and protected, may everyone, may all beings everywhere feel safe and protected. And just as we wish to be happy and peaceful, we include in that aspiration, in that wish for all beings everywhere to be deeply happy, truly peaceful. May we and all beings live with the ease of an open heart. May our hearts be steady through the ups and downs of life. May all beings have the resources they need. And may all beings appreciate their lives. May we and all beings treasure ourselves and each other. And may we and all beings be free. May all beings be free from suffering and live with ease. And just taking a few minutes to offer these well wishes to ourselves, to each other, to all beings everywhere without exception. Just feeling that connection to all humanity, all creatures. Our kinship with all life. So this is a very different kind of practice in that the focus is on just what Pilar was bringing up earlier, deliberately cultivating a positive feeling. And that's different from being mindful of whatever it is that appears in our lives, in our consciousness, and, we have to make a relationship with it simply because it's here. It has appeared. And how are we mindful? What kind of relationship can we make with it? that's our mindfulness practice. And with the loving kindness practice, and there are other practices to generate feelings of connection and compassion and joy and that steadiness of equanimity. But with these practices, we are deliberately inclining our hearts in that direction. And the beauty of it is we don't have to feel like we're, the fountain of love overflowing into the universe. Maybe we will have moments like that. I hope so. They're very pleasurable, and they're beautiful. But even if the practice, repeating the phrases, trying to concentrate, trying to stay, even if it becomes kind of mechanical, it's kind of like, I was thinking of eating spinach, but actually now I like spinach. But eating something you don't really like, you don't have to like it for it to nourish your body and help keep you alive. So there are times in the practice where we don't really like it. It feels mechanical or dry or boring. But it is still nourishing our life and consciousness, planting those seeds of intention to be loving and connected and caring. It will work. We just need to keep doing it. So I just want to see, do we have time for more conversation together? We do. Good. Okay. And you'll just give me a time check of, great.
I think it'd be great to hear just anyone's experience of that.
Yeah, what that was like for you, especially if it's something you haven't done much before. Or if you've done it a lot before, why you do it so much. You want to start? You're holding the mic. Or just what it was like today, doing this together right now. Put up, yeah.
This is a great experience. I mean, especially if somebody doesn't, I'm the type of person that does meditation on my own. I do a lot of things on my own. So this group experience is totally different for me.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, I spend time with my friends, but when I meditate, I love to do it on my own.
Yeah.
So this is great. I feel the good energy coming from everybody, and the experience, especially from Pilar, her insight. It's beautiful. You know how you're saying that you have to stay positive, and we're always having all these negative things going in through our mind. But now that I'm more relaxed, I can feel the compassion. I can feel just the good vibes from everybody, and it's just it's beautiful. I mean, this is like a loving connection that we all have here, because we're here for a purpose. We're here for to be happy. You know, it's we don't want to be, if we don't want to have bad feelings. We want to get out of the rut that we're in. We want to be mindful of other people, of showing gratitude. It's like every single day when I wake up in the morning, I'm awake, I'm alive, and I'm grateful. And people tend to forget that, because everybody's based on like, oh, I have bills to pay, oh, this and that, oh my goodness. They're so totally into maybe materialistic things, but like every single time I wake up in the morning, it's just like, thank God, I'm awake, I'm alive.
You're grateful.
Yeah, I'm very grateful.
You're grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's love, You're loving yourself for doing that, because the minute you open your eyes, it's like, wow, you're loving yourself for appreciating that you're on earth,
Yes. Yes.
Even if you don't feel happy at that moment, you're still here.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm finding these days that this loving kindness practice is so helpful when I and people around me are in this sort of angst that seems to be happening in our politics, in the culture here, and in the world where there's a lot of divisive speech and this feeling of isolation and separation and actually fear, that this has just been such a useful tool in being an antidote to that kind of fear and sense of isolation. That, when you really can feel this connection with all beings, and the idea of divisiveness or fear doesn't even make any sense.
It's true. Great. Thank you.
I was just gonna say that I think, the saying of like, the more you give, the more you receive, and just in that practice right there, I felt giving the gift of peacefulness to the world at large. I felt more, it drew me back to like the beginning, thinking like giving peace and love to myself. It was like easier to give that peace and love when you're like allowing that to other people. I don't know. That's
Yeah,
exactly what I was feeling and
That's
thinking right then and
exactly
there.
how it works.
So
Thank
that was
you.
pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah. One of the things that is so important, just to come back to what Terry was saying, is the power of doing this together. And whether it's together in the room as we are here, whether it's together online because we're not doing it all by ourselves, that is a huge support for establishing and maintaining a practice, which we will talk about more in the course to come. How do you do that? And how do you manage to, it's great to talk about changing your life, but if the practice only works if you do it, how do you make a life where you can actually do it when you already have a to-do list this long? And do I have to add something else now to my to-do list? No, thank you, right? So the beauty of this practice is doing it together because it helps keep the energy. The energy is different when we practice together. And that is transmitted online as well. I've discovered that working with people. And how do we do it? We do it together. We give each other, we lend each other our strength to keep going and to continue. And it makes it more fun that we want to see our friends that we meet, at the studio or wherever we might get together. And when I started, when I was a single mom, as I was describing to you, I couldn't always go off to drop into classes or, just turn on my computer and have that time. But often what I did, I would ask a friend to come over early in the morning and not to tell me which day they were going to come. So that way I would get up to do my practice because I wasn't sure, was Jennifer going to come that day or was Peter going to come over or, yeah. So there are lots of ways you can help to support your own practice, and being together, it's so important. So yeah, Brian, you were waiting to talk.
I have a question. I would love to hear from all of your years of teaching and working with people. Do you have like people that stand out that it's really helped? Do you have some stories? I would love to hear a couple of shares around, yeah, it's really impacted this person's life, or how it turned somebody's life around.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, you've listened a little bit to each other in that way. And if anybody else, if you feel you've had a big turnaround, anybody else wants to share from this group, I would start right there. Because the people who actually impress me the most and are the most vivid in my consciousness are the ones that I'm with right now. That's just how it works. The present moment is the most powerful. I think somebody asked the Dalai Lama once, what is like your favorite, I can't remember if it was the favorite moment or the favorite thing, but he just said right now, this. So that's the first answer. But I guess I would say that some of the people who stand out the most are the people who faced perhaps the most challenging circumstances. Those I would remember very vividly. And for example, I have worked in a refugee camp in eastern Chad, in the heart of Africa, which is right next to Sudan, where Darfur is. And So the Darfuris who were able to flee the genocide fled into eastern Chad, and there are these refugee camps up and down the border. And I went and taught mindfulness there. And I think that that it made such a vivid impression on me to be in a completely different culture among, thousands and thousands of people who were living in essentially an open prison. And some of them had decided that they wanted to learn mindfulness because they had been learning, the refugee women were learning to teach in a preschool program that some friends of mine set up there. And they wanted to bring mindfulness into the program. And watching the women who were teaching there begin to have the ability to express themselves in a group, to find their voice, to speak up, to have the confidence. I mean, they know how to take care of the children, so that isn't something new, but to have the confidence that they can really be teachers to the children. And that was so moving and so stunning to me. And that they are eager to learn how to use mindfulness to work with the trauma that they carry. I guess I've also watched people facing their death, which is another very intense and situation, but one which will happen to all of us. At some point, we are all going to be with ourselves as we die. And seeing people who, one person in particular, was just terrified and very angry because she was young and she had a list of things that she wanted to do. She didn't want to die. Well, I don't know that anybody wants to die, but watching her, and she was also terrified. So for her, the loving kindness practice was the one that helped, and that we did a lot together. And watching her begin to calm the terror that she was in through practicing together, and then also being able to do it on her own at home, and then watching her little by little let go of, after all, they were thoughts and ideas about what she had to do and wanted to do. She still wanted to, but they didn't have the same hold over her anymore because she wasn't going to be able to do them. And suddenly to let them go brought peace and relief. She was a professor at a wonderful college. And at the end of the semester, she went to teach her last class of the semester. And she said to her husband, "This might be the last class I ever teach." And he said to her, "Make it a good one." And so that kind of spirit, that exchange could never have happened the year before that she began to practice. And she went on to say, "I will be amazed if I die," because she felt so healed from the terror, from the dread, from the "I must," that she couldn't believe that healing wasn't going to manifest physically also, but she was too far into her illness for that to happen, unfortunately. But she died in such a different frame of mind, thanks to the practice. Let's go on, and then some others will come to me. I mean, so many thousands of people and so many beautiful stories. I guess I want to tell you one story, though, about a child that I worked with, because I've done a lot of work with kids as well. In fact, I wrote the first chapter about using mindfulness in psychotherapy with kids. It's amazing now when I think of how much is out there, but it wasn't. And this was a child who, a boy who had lost his dad. I can't remember if he was 7 or 9, but a young boy who had lost his dad. And he was feeling so terrible about himself and everything that he was being destructive. And he was getting into fights at school, and he was ruining things at home, and just being really bad and destructive. And his mom was at her wit's end, and she knew that she was being tested and to see, can you be my mommy and my daddy? But she was grieving too. The whole family was in disarray and sorrow at that time. And working with this child and we worked in two ways. One was to, through the loving kindness practice, indirectly begin to connect him with his father, that it was good to think about his father, that the sadness was an expression of love and connection, and that he could imagine his father. He could evoke memories of his father looking at him with love. Oh, he fortunately had a loving dad, or he might not have been as sad to lose him. But so he began to reconnect with the thing that he had been avoiding because it made him feel so sad, but to reconnect with some of the love and positive feeling. And then he also he learned to be more mindful about the impact of his behaviors. That's hard for kids, to be more mindful about the impact and to have some choice, like what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? And the way that, and I worked this way with a little girl too, who had a loss, because it's not so easy to focus on the breath and sustain that. We did something very concrete, like choose a necklace and wear that necklace, and then you can touch it when you need to remember. Or for the little boy, I can't remember what the actual object was, but it was choosing an object that his father had given him that would carry that strength and love and help him connect to that. Another child that I worked with was the daughter of a very, very famous person who loved her, but who was very preoccupied with their own work, would kind of, trip over her on their way to the computer or something, They just weren't really aware of her very much. And the other parent was convinced that, and so she actually, she also behaved badly, but in the way girls do more. She was very withdrawn. And so the mother began to think she was autistic and was actually told that she was on that spectrum by a pediatrician. So when I got her, and she was only 3 years old when she came to me. And I taught her by being mindful and patient with her, not asking her to be any other way. But she wanted to play the exact same game where she would be sleeping and then I would come and wake her up, like the alarm clock or something. And it was so boring. And it was such a simple, she was only 3. It was such a simple game. It wasn't fun at all. And over and over and over. And this is a lot of what our practice is like. Through the repetition and the repetition, we learn. And so through the repetition and my willingness to do this not very fun, kind of boring thing with her over and over and over, she learned something about presence and something about patience and something, she didn't need to do that forever. She did it for a pretty long time. But after a while, her play expanded and she could play about lots of different other things. And lo and behold, her drawings changed from being, this one person alone in a car with snowflakes. I used to live and work in Boston, with snowflakes coming down and the driver, to drawings of creatures and, lots, just expanded her range enormously. And I worked with her for a long time until she was about 7. And at that point, I would say in class, she was a slightly odd girl, a little different, but she was who she was. Everybody accepted her. She had friends, and she wasn't an outlier. She wasn't alone anymore. And most important of all, her parents, too, were able to enjoy her more. So those are some examples. And I think you'll notice from these examples that it isn't always just about, through mindfulness of the breath. That's a step. But it's also through being able to make the practice of presence our own in whatever way we find to do that. And kids have sonar for that. I think we all do. We all know when someone's really with us or not quite, And we know it with ourselves, too. And this is really one way of becoming such a good friend, both to ourselves and really all those whose lives we touch. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so, when I shared earlier, I think maybe it was a little abstract, this shift that I experienced from being very goal-oriented to being very process-oriented. But really, the gift of that was more and more just being able to drop into a kind of happiness that is not dependent on achievement or getting somewhere or getting something, a kind of simplicity of happiness that seems to always be there, but we just don't notice it until we can kind of drop in and engage in our experience in a certain way. And that has been such a profound gift. And what kind of comes with that too is taking myself and life less seriously, just not being so tight about things. And there's a kind of joy in that too, that it's just joy is more accessible and I'm more easygoing and it takes more to rile me up. And when I get riled up, I come back more easily. So many gifts in this practice.
Yes, there are. Thank you. I'm glad you added that. And especially because we can be very attached to and loyal to our own suffering. It's really amazing. And take it, of course, it's our suffering. We take it to heart. But as the social activist and clown Wavy Gravy said, if you don't have a sense of humor, it's not very funny. Yeah. That lightening of being able to laugh, of having a sense of humor is so uplifting for our hearts and connecting too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Last chance.
I just want to add one more thing. Is this thing that you just talked about, the connecting, the mindfulness listening and talking, for me was something also that was very powerful. Just to sit down next to somebody and to look at the eyes and let her talk for 5 minutes, and then she doing the same thing to you. Wow. It's something that goes straight to your heart and every pore of your body. And after that, you feel a connection with that person that is just amazing. And I just want to say that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's true. And sometimes I think of the whole practice of meditation as a practice of listening. Listening to ourselves, listening to the world, just being willing to slow into experience and listen. Yeah. And the experience of being listened to in that way is, well, it's what we were saying about presence before. It's so powerful. It's so powerful.
And that's why, for me, this practice is so universal and make me change in that way, because make me connect with people. It's like everybody's like me. I mean, we all have our own crazy lives, but we all want the same things. So it's like it doesn't matter who you are. Basically, you are the same. We are all the same, and so it's like if I don't know you from anything, and I'm sitting down here and just feeling all these emotions. It's just wow, it's incredible.
Feeling the emotions of closeness and connection, even
Exactly.
though you don't
Exactly.
know
That's what-
Caitlin, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can even add it to whatever you are driving, and the car next to you is the same as you. It's a guy driving like you are doing. So it's like it goes,
We
extends.
really need this in our world. Think if everyone in the world could feel connected in this way, what a different world we would live in. Yeah. Do you want to pass it? Pass it. This is the LA girl.
Oh, I don't know if I have much more of another comment than that, to be honest. But I just agree.
Because what was your comment?
That it's especially important to be mindful of other people, and a very real world application would be while driving. There's a lot
Yes.
of, certainly in this area, there's a lot of road rage, and
Yeah.
I think, and I also just think just right now in general, we've talked about this a little bit, and I think everyone has a little bit of extra fear and anger in their system, just culturally, universally. And I mean, I think just last week or so, there's a terrible accident with like 10 vehicles. There was a oil spill. It like lit up on fire. Somebody died, and it was just to go 5 miles, it would be 2.5 hours kind of backed up. And a lot of people would just not really tune into the fact that, hey, we just lost a life, and somebody we most likely don't know. But there's something bigger going on than the frustration of not being able to move about a few feet further and getting home a little bit later than we would have liked. Granted, very frustrating situation to be in, because I don't think most people really like to feel trapped and contained. And we're used to be able to, at least in our culture, to be able to get where we need to get within a certain timely manner and have expectations. So I think having a real knowledge and compassion for other people, and perhaps even letting go of and recognizing when we have expectations and seeing how they can actually be very limiting.
Yeah, thank you. Very wise. I don't have anything to add to that. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I think people sometimes do feel the license to behave badly in their cars because nobody else is watching, but we're always watching ourselves. We always see, so yeah.
Great. Well, I wanted to kind of recap and then just
Yeah,
one
please.
last little question. So we've heard from everybody. Thank you all for sharing your stories of how, some of these practices have affected you, and the stories that you've told. It's just like, this is where you can get to, and these are the benefits that you can have from practicing mindfulness. And I couldn't help but feeling at moments, during this, dropping back into beginner's mind, like really beginner's mind, and feeling the people that are really curious about this, that really want to try and practice, but it's like they're so overwhelmed by everything in their head, you know what I mean? And they don't kind of know where to begin, let alone sustain.
Yeah.
And we did some beautiful practices today. But if you were, talking to somebody who's kind of just starting out, who's like, I want to try this. My friends tell me it's great, but it's so hard, Like, are there just some words of wisdom, or like a very simple practice that they could take away from today?
Yes, because that feeling of it being so hard, it's kind of like what Pilar was saying about her pain. there's the expectation that it's always going to be hard. And it isn't. It's only hard to get started, actually.
Yeah.
And then, like anything else, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. But we don't, when we're eating breakfast, we don't say, is this easy or is this difficult? We just do it. And that's how the practice, it becomes simple that way. We just do it together and we do it on our own. And the beauty of practicing mindfulness, and I think why I loved this practice, although I tried many other interesting meditation practices, is that we can practice it when we're not doing a formal practice of sitting in meditation or doing a walking meditation. And we can be aware anytime we remember. And I think that's why that meaning of mindfulness as remembering comes in, that you can begin by deciding to take a few mindful steps when you're walking on your way to work or down the hallway at work. You can begin by deciding the first 3 bites of my lunch, I will be aware of what I'm eating. I will actually taste the food. I will notice when a bite of deliciousness appears and then I swallow and it disappears. You can choose to experiment with little bits and pieces during the day, and there are now lots of supports for doing that available. But it feels hard because our lives feel hard. And the more that we actually bring this practice into our lives, the more ease we experience, even if nothing has changed externally.
I love that. Just something as simple as eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brushing our teeth.
Brushing your teeth.
Things we hopefully do every day.
Right. Right. Saying like one of the sentences from the meditation that we did.
Absolutely.
If they're feeling suffering, just one of those sentences.
You can just
in
say
the moment.
safe.
Right.
As you walk, you can, with your footsteps, safe, happy, healthy, free.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be doing a more in-depth course with Trudy online. And it, again, will be called Mindfulness for Your Whole Life. And as you can see, it affects so many different things, from dealing with pain to your general orientation to how you go about life, your pace, how much you appreciate things. So it touches so many areas of our lives. And Trudy's going to offer some beautiful teachings as a part of this, some more guided meditations, and then practices that people can take and work with in their everyday life. She just gave us a very simple one, but there'll be a lot more in the course. And then the really special part of this is that you'll get to submit questions, and we're going to do a monthly online video conference with Trudy. So she'll answer those questions in real time, and you'll have a chance to interact with her there. So it's a really special opportunity. And Trudy, do you want to say just a couple words about just some of the things that we'll touch on content-wise?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about mindfulness for your whole life, I'm really committed to helping you focus on how to be as seamless as possible. In other words, not have certain places where you feel okay and certain places, well, I'm not going to be mindful there because that's hopeless. I always overeat, or I'm too addicted to sugar, whatever it might be. The practices that I want to offer and the teachings that we'll share are really designed to help you see that everything is your path, that everything can be useful and valuable, even the things that we don't welcome at all. And I think that's one of the greatest freeing aspects of this practice, is that we develop the confidence that we can meet whatever life brings. And so that's really what I'm interested in, offering a series of teachings and very practical practices to help us transform our suffering into wisdom and compassion, whether it's just little aggravation, irritation, suffering, or major losses or life challenges. And so it's really about making everything a learning experience in a good way for our lives. And yeah.
Great. We're really excited about the program. And if you're tuning in, we'll be in touch with you in the next couple of weeks when registration opens for that. And I want to thank you again for tuning in today to Conscious 2. We're just always really super appreciative of your eyes and your hearts and your minds and the support that you give us. And thank you again to you guys, this live audience. You were amazing. Thanks for your presence and your questions and your sharing. And thank you to Trudy.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so very much.
And I also thank all of you. I really have loved our time of practice together. And whenever we have a time of study and practice together, it is customary to just close that time with some well wishes for everybody. So can we do that together?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is part of the appreciation, the gratitude that Terry was talking about, that we really appreciate this chance to devote our time, our energy, our attention to becoming more awake, more loving and aware. And as an expression of our gratitude and appreciation, we wish that all beings everywhere, without exception, can also have a chance to discover the huge reservoirs of peace and love, of joy, of compassion, of equanimity. That is our birthright as human beings. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.